Welcome to Building Your T-Shirt Empire, powered by ShirtAgency.com. Get ready to take a trip inside the apparel industry for the best tips, tricks, and interviews. And now, here's your host, Cole Lundstrom.
All right, hello. We are here with Brett from Printed Threads and Joni from ShirtAgency.com. What are we going to talk about? What's going on? Brett, why are you in town?
Just really wanted to spend the night in Los Angeles and feel the cool breeze in my hair.
Yeah, the hotel you ended up at is pretty decent.
Yeah, it was not too shabby.
So Brett's here basically to help us out a little with Shirt Agency and kind of give us some fresh eyes. So in this episode, I think we'll pretty much just kind of go over like some of the highlights of what we've been like learning from you. Joni, what's one of the things that you were like kind of surprised we weren't doing?
I like the idea of having compartmentalized management. We've gotten to a point where it's larger than just the two of us. So it makes sense to have multiple managers that report to us that handle different sections of the company.
Yeah, so like what do you do, Brett, at your shop to kind of make that work? Like how do you separate your departments?
Yeah, so I think as a company grows, it's super important to like have a foundation to grow upon, and sometimes your company might grow faster than you realize, and if you haven't really established different departments and who's in charge of those departments, then it just becomes a mess and no one knows who to talk to. It's like watching Office Space and everybody has three bosses or whatever. You need to really define like who is in charge of what and what their responsibilities are and give them those clear expectations. So we have four main departments, right? So that Ryan, our VP, only has 4 direct reports, and then under them are more people that will report to Ryan's direct reports. So those departments are, we have an art room manager, we have a sales and marketing manager, we have a business manager, and we have a production manager.
Yeah, and the thing that I thought was really interesting is like your team was what, 20-something people?
25.
So some of these managers have teams of like 3 or 4.
Right.
Which is like... you would think that that's a small team, but what you were telling me was that it creates like a more deep connection to your manager. Instead of having you as the boss be in charge of everyone and threatening everyone, they have somebody that they're working side by side with every day, and you're not getting too removed from each other as people. Yeah,
so communication is what everybody always complains about in small business. Communication has always been this problem that it's really hard to figure out, and we still have communication problems certainly, but if you can create channels for communication, that's super important. So when I need something done, I don't want to go talk to 4 people about getting it done. I want to talk to the one person that's in charge of 3 or 4 other people so that he can make sure everything is done and I can hold him accountable for his team.
Yeah, I mean, you were talking about the screen room specifically and how, like, in your shop, you wouldn't talk to the guy who didn't clean the screens. It would go to the person in charge of the screen production.
Yeah, so really, like, it's a manager or a supervisor's job to equip and teach an employee how to do his job properly. So if the employee is not doing the job properly, is it really the employee to blame? A lot of times he hasn't been properly educated on how to do his job, and that's really the supervisor's fault.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing I thought was fascinating was like the way you guys handle like merch for clients. Can you talk a little about like how you offer more than just screen printing at your shop, and you're not kind of playing like the price game when you're selling t-shirts?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different angles to speak to on this, I guess. For our company, we've actually started out just screen printing T-shirts, but having a more broad understanding of the other, components that people need to complete their merchandising. So if it's this could be a rock band on tour, and not only do they sell T-shirts, but they sell posters and they sell other little trinkets like guitar picks or something like that. Or it could be maybe it's a new company that moved in down the street and they want every one of their employees to have a shirt and a hat and a pen and a notebook and all these things. So you want to provide like this full package for them and be able to handle all those products for them. But where we really came out of is kind of the rock and roll industry or the music industry, where we were, several of us that work at Printed Threads were in rock bands, and we knew what the livelihood of being in a rock band is, and that's selling merchandise. And then, when our bands got to a certain size where we're playing bigger venues, we stopped selling our own merchandise. You show up to a venue, you give it to the person that runs the merchandising for that venue, they sell it, and then you collect at the end of the night. So that's something that was kind of always in my head, is like, oh, maybe we should be the people doing that. So when we make a whole bunch of merchandise for a music festival, we'll also go to the music festival and we'll sell it for the event. And that not only, gives us another revenue source, but it also enables us to be like in front of a bunch of people and communicating the message of Printed Threads to a bunch of other people. So it's like a marketing opportunity.
Yeah, marketing opportunity, and just your clients need you more. I mean, it gets you, it kind of like gets your hooks in a way.
Yeah.
Because you're offering so much more than like screen printing.
It's like worry-free merch.
Yeah, definitely. And so
Who
we
owns
actually,
that domain?
yeah, really.
Quick, GoDaddy.
So we changed the name, or changed the. We used to say we were a screen printing company, and then we said we were a screen printing and embroidery company, and now we say that we're a merchandising company.
Huh.
And so one place that we try to sit is kind of like in between a print shop and an ad agency, right? So there's, all these new restaurants coming in town, all these different companies coming in town, and they go to an ad agency to get their branding and logo design, all that stuff done. And then the ad agency contracts that work to the screen printing shop. What if we can sit in the middle there and we can do both? So we don't have to go through a middleman to get to the customer. We just go directly to the customer. So that's just another big thought process I had that made us change from being a screen printing shop to a merchandising company.
Yeah, and what I thought was so cool was that you guys are so different than kind of the world that I started in with Shirt Agency, where you're not really focused on online advertising, but you're more focused on like guerrilla marketing, or not even guerrilla marketing, but just classic marketing. What are some of the cool giveaways you've been doing? Because you were talking about like playing cards and stuff.
Yeah, so there's all kinds of tchotchke stuff that you get when you go to a trade show or something like that. Stuff that you end up not ever using. You end up throwing it in the trash as soon as you leave. Maybe, you get... It's funny, at every trade show, especially if you ever go to like an ASI or a PPAI trade show, they try to hand you a bag full of stuff before you even walk into the trade show. And I just don't want to carry anything with me, so I declined. But instead of having products that you give to customers that they're going to throw away, give products to customers that like you think that they would enjoy. So, we designed some playing cards that we had made so that people that like to play cards, it's easy to always have a deck of cards and in your car. Like my wife always keeps a deck of cards in her purse, and so that's something that people actually use over and over and over. And whenever you use it over and over and over, they see your name over and over and over. So it's effective marketing, right? And then we have a bunch of different fun things. Like we made a bunch of those balsa wood airplanes to give out, and those are fun to fly. And of course, if you give them to your kids, they break in 5 seconds. But someone that might be a designer or someone that just thinks the little trinkets are cool like that, that's probably going to sit on their desk for a long time. We've done just normal, typical things like koozies, but we got koozies made that aren't your, the cheap neoprene koozies that everybody uses now. But we got a bunch of the old school like vinyl ones made.
Oh, cool.
The ones that float in the lake. And just try to do things that are a little bit more unique stuff. Think ahead. Think of what our customer would like. And everybody's customers are different, right? If you work for a bunch of sports teams, maybe you have something like sports bottles, like a water bottle or something like that to give out. So we all have a unique niche, and so it's just important that we make sure that whatever we're giving to our client is something that they will actually appreciate.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of the reason you guys grow is because you're in a world of like, kind of like high volume printing and price conscious printing. It seems like you've gone in another direction of like high touch printing. So you're contacting this customer and giving them a completely different level of customer service than they're going to get. So you're not trying to compete with Custom Ink whatsoever. You're trying to be this like merchandise agency that handles almost everything the client could possibly need you to handle, which is obviously just not available on a website for $7.20 a print.
Yeah, so I think it's, we're in this world where everybody's scared of Amazon. We're all scared of the internet. What is that going to do to us? And my response to that is, let's create relationships with our customers that they don't want to sever. There's something really special about going and seeing a factory and seeing how things are made and having people there that really care about it. I did this thing a couple of years ago where I bought an RV, and my family and I had traveled the United States in this RV, and one of my favorite things to do when we got to a new town was go tour a factory. So we went and toured up in near Sacramento is the Jelly Belly factory.
That's cool.
And then in Vermont we toured Ben and Jerry's, and we toured the Hershey factory in Hershey, Pennsylvania. So we went to all these places, and there's something really special about like that human element and that human touch. And I think that if we can still reach our customer in that we're human way, hopefully they'll still come to us. We are living in a world now that's like the millennials coming up don't really talk to each other anymore. They want to just click a couple buttons and make something happen, and like the less conversation, the better. And so that's probably something to be a little bit concerned about. But
for all of humanity.
For all of humanity.
That goes beyond screen printing.
Right. But if we can still provide an excellent level of customer service where we can talk to people, they can come to the shop, we can have real relationships, I think that'll be great.
Yeah, and I mean, you were saying even that your social media, speaking of people not talking to each other, your social media is not aimed at it's not aimed at like an endless feed of just junk. Like you're trying to blatantly entertain a group so that even if they don't need the shirt, they're going to enjoy your social media just because it's well done. And then it may be a year and a half before they ever even think that they need t-shirts.
Yeah, so our industry is really funny because what happens is every screen printing shop has an Instagram that is followed by hundreds of other screen printing shops.
Yep.
And, I've asked questions a lot to other screen printers, like who in screen printing do you think has the best Instagram? And they'll like tell me, and I'll go look, and it's like stuff that like I think is cool and stuff that you think is cool, but it like stuff that our customers are like, what is that? Right. Why am I looking at that? And so for us, it's this like we want to just show really cool, clean pictures, some funny videos, stuff that really fits our personality, but that is something that like just anyone would follow us and be like, oh, that was funny, and not have to be someone that really gives a crap about t-shirts.
Right.
So like if those random people are following our Instagram account, whenever they have a family reunion or something come up and someone's like, hey, we need to get some t-shirts made, they know who to call. We're already at the top of their mind because we're in their Instagram feed every day or whatever.
Yeah, which is the That's the best advertising ever if it's popping up for free organically.
Yeah.
So, Joni, what did you think about some of the ways to change the sales department, or just the way to deal with customers?
I think providing more structure is definitely important, and guidelines that's easily visible on the website would be excellent and a good idea, especially since with more direction, it's easier for customers to understand the process.
Yeah. I think a lot of what he was saying yesterday was that we basically haven't written anything down. Like a lot of what Shirt Agency's doing, when we're doing it right, we're not actually really following a formula. We're feeling things out. And you guys seem to have pretty much everything documented, right?
Yeah, document all of our processes, and then, for two reasons. One, because we want to know the best way to do it and write it down when we actually hit that magic moment. But and then we can hold our employees to that and say hey, this isn't going well and it's because you're not following the procedure. But then the next step of that is your employees aren't going to work for you forever. You might have someone work for you for 6 months or a year, and then they leave and they move on to something else, and you have to replace them. And you have a new hire come in, and you have to train them all over again. If you have all your processes documented, that becomes very easy. If you don't, what happens is you know how to do things so well that you forget all the little things to teach them. And then when they screw up and you get upset, you look back and realize, oh, I guess I never told you that. I just thought you should know.
Yeah. Right. Well, I mean, we've definitely seen that, especially on the art side, where you have people coming in and they tell you they're a graphic designer or they've done screen separations or something, and then you discover that they don't know how to create an actual spot Pantone color. And it's not necessarily that they can't do it, it's that you're surprised that they couldn't, which can totally mess up the relationship without spelling out here's the task.
Yeah, it's really easy to get annoyed. I think that's humans love being negative. It's just it's the easiest thing to do. You see it on whenever you look at a Yelp review of a restaurant, one thing happened that was bad, and then they write this terrible review of the restaurant, which is just total BS, But it's easy for us to have someone working with us that does something wrong or does something the way that we wouldn't do it, and we get really annoyed and upset about it, and then at the end of the day realize they were never given a really clear expectation of what we wanted done. And so whose fault is it that we're mad, right? It's our own fault.
Yeah, it's funny, that whole transition from punk rock to, because there's something about screen printing where there's so much personal freedom. I feel like screen printers, this industry, has a ton of people that do not care about what you look like. You can wear a t-shirt every day to work. You can wear shorts every day to work. You can have your hair however you want it. No one really cares about any of that. But then, yeah, you're saying, that ultimately sticking to that to the detriment of the company is kind of crazy. And I think no one's trying to force everyone to wear a blue polo, but it is going to improve the lives of everyone working there if they just feel they're working towards a goal together instead of winging it.
Yeah, and I think this you have to make a decision. 5 years ago or 6 years ago, I started taking some business leadership classes, and someone in the class looked at me and said, "What's your exit strategy?" And at the time I was 30 years old, and I was thinking what do you mean exit strategy? That's crazy, But what he really meant was where do you want your company to go? Do you want to be a $10 million or a $50 million screen printing company? Are you fine being $1 million? Are you fine being $500,000? Those are all acceptable things to be. You just need to decide which one you want, Mm-hmm. So if you just want to maintain being at $500,000 or $1 million, you can still be punk rock. But if you're going to grow beyond that, if you're going to have a larger amount of employees working for you, you have to have so much structure, because you're becoming vulnerable. You're opening yourself up to vulnerabilities, and all it takes is one little thing to happen to ruin your business. It could be an employee suing you. It could be screwing up 5,000 shirts. One little mistake can cost you your business.
Yeah. Going on to like some other aspects of screen printing, I thought it was really interesting just because you're involved with SGIA. All the other parts of screen printing besides textiles. Could you kind of touch on like some of the stuff none of us are actually doing?
Yeah. So screen printing is all around us, and I think that we don't realize it because of the world we're in, but textiles is a really small part of the screen printing industry. If you drive a car, for example, on your way home, look at your speedometer. If you have white lines and red lines on your speedometer, that was probably screen printed. They use emulsion to make the textures that are on your dashboard, or we have some of those park benches that feel a little bit rubbery. That's actually made of plastisol ink. It's pretty crazy. And then our phones, inside of our phones, those circuit boards are actually screen printed. They're using a conductive ink on those circuit boards that is being screen printed in tiny, tiny, fine little lines and fine detail. It's really amazing. And if you go to something like an SGIA trade show, you see a lot of that stuff happening. The machines, and it's kind of mesmerizing what else is in our industry. I went to a conference a couple of weeks ago for the printed electronics industry, and it was all screen printers there, but they screen print on circuit boards. And one of the really cool things that they presented was this last year at the Winter Olympics, Ralph Lauren provided all the jackets to the Olympians or to all of Team USA, and they had a heater inside of their jackets, and it was a screen printing company that came up with the technology to put a heater inside of those jackets. And so it's just kind of mesmerizing what our industry is doing. So there's a lot of things that could come into play with the collaboration of textiles and printed electronics.
Yeah, I think the mashup of technology and screen printing is really amazing, and like what that could lead to in the future could be like really incredible looking. So it's really loud. So I
think it's gonna be short, but yeah.
I think that's it. We're good. That's a podcast, right?
Okay.
Anything else you got to say?
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, you had more. You're ready to go.
I'm just going to tell some jokes.
Oh, okay, cool. Go for it.
Yeah.
Let's hear a joke.
My 4-year-old is very funny, and he came up to me one day and said, "Hey, Daddy, what's that on your arm?" And I looked at my arm, looked all around my arm, didn't see anything on my arm, and I said, "I don't see anything on my arm." And he looks at me and goes, "It's your hand."
Genius.
It's your.
I like it.
Yeah.
Did he laugh before, the punchline, or did he handle it?
I mean, he was kind of smiling. He's always smiling, It was hilarious. Yeah,
it was in the delivery.
He's definitely a little comedian. It's pretty awesome.
That's
adorable.
Cool. Well, thanks for listening, everyone. Adios.
Goodbye.
Bye.